Hello, am I audible, ma'am? Good evening. Hello, good evening, ma'am. Ma'am, your audio is mute. Your audio is mute.
Can we start
Good
at 4
evening,
o'clock?
sir. Sure, we can. We can.
Yeah. Yeah, we have around 32 participants now. I think that is including us. But where to see the list of the participants, I'm not able to.
Ajish, can you
It's a new
mute
platform
yourself,
for me
please?
too. Yeah. Actually, I was asking you that where to see the participant list actually.
Yeah, please mute yourself and talk to Ajay separately. Give Ajay a call and talk to him separately, please, or talk to Ahana separately. Please mute yourself. Yeah. Thank you very much. Professor, just give me like 2 more minutes if possible. Okay. I know it's 4:01. Just give me 2 more minutes and we should be able to start. Thank you very much for joining us today evening, sir. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you very much.
I think we'll start, sir. We have around 50 participants right now, and I think the numbers will keep increasing. So let me start. I didn't want to delay you any further. So Let me start with the program. Good evening, everyone. I'm Professor Michi Matthew from the School of Architecture and Design, Trivandrum. Welcome to the July edition of Design Diaries at DZ, an ongoing series of talks showcasing architects from various walks of life. It's aimed at exploring the various facets of architecture as a profession. As the first of its series, we have Padma Shri, Dr. G. Shankar, founder and chairman of Habitat Technology Group, talking to us today on why architecture is a profession of choice and what its are. Before I invite him to speak further, let me also welcome Mr. Ravi DZ, Chief Facilitator of DZ Group of Institutions, as well as Managing Director of DZ Books to this event. I would also like to cordially invite Architect T.M. Sarayak, our Dean of Academics, and Architect Shankar Khandadai, Dean Operations, as well as Principal of DC School of Architecture and Design, Wagaman, to the July edition of Design Diaries at DC. Our inaugural speaker today for Design Diaries at DC, Dr. G. Shankar, is popularly known as People's Architect. Having his BA from College of Engineering, Trivandrum, and MS from Birmingham School of Architecture, Architect Shankar was highly inspired by architect Laurie Baker and has always prioritized the housing needs of the common man. He is also the founder and chairman of Habitat Technology Group, which is the largest NGO in the shelter section in South Asia. He is also an advocate of cost-effective, eco-friendly, and sustainable building technologies. Since 1987, Architect Shankar has been the UN consultant for disaster mitigation. He has taken up housing projects in Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Nepal, Palestine, and Haiti. He has won 3 national awards for green architecture, slum resettlement, and eco-city design, apart from being awarded the Padma Shri, the 4th highest civilian award by Government of India in 2011. A hearty welcome to you, Dr. G. Shankar, to this inaugural session of Design Diaries at DZ, hosted by DZ School of Architecture and Design, Trivandrum. We are extremely pleased and honored to have you as our inaugural speaker today. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much for those glorious words of introduction. Thank you very much. It's my privilege and my utmost happiness that I'm here, especially talking to the young, probable students of architecture. What I'm going to share with you today is the experience that I've gained for the last 35 to 40 years of professional practice, my life as an architect. So what I'm going to share is actually out of my pure experiences. My attitudes have changed, my perceptions have changed. Everything has changed over the last few years. And I'm only privileged and happy to share it with you. Let me start with a small story on Jonathan Livingston Seagull. I don't know whether you have heard of the seagull called Jonathan Livingston. Jonathan Livingston Seagull is a famous character in a small little novelette written by Richard Bach. Richard Bach was a pilot. He used to fly aircrafts during the Second World War, and he used to have a very different vision of the world, looking from above, looking at the world below. He used to have a very different vision. And that actually resulted in a wonderful small book called Jonathan Livingston Seagull. And I'll just cut it short by telling the crux of the story. Jonathan was a young seagull. Like all seagulls, he was trained to go to the ship, take the food from the sailors' vessels, and come back to the shore. That was the distance that was destined for seagulls. Seagulls actually, for your information, they live on the shores, but they go to the ships to get their food parcels. Then they come back, and then the rest roost in the shores. Jonathan, when he was very young, he had other ideas about living and his missions. he started soaring high, His wings were young, not really mature, but he was trying to go up and up in the sky. His parents used to scold him by telling that, look, Jonathan, you don't have the age, you don't have the maturity to soar up. And why do you venture out to such heights? You're not as a seagull. Only distance that you need to go is to find a distance to fetch your food and then come back to the shore to have your living and things like that. But Jonathan actually wanted to see the higher accounts of the sky, and Jonathan started to soar up and up. He tried flying up and up, but unfortunately, he fell down a couple of times. He bruised his wings, and the parents were very, very angry at him. They were aggravated. They said, look, Jonathan, this is not the way I want you to grow up as a seagull. But Jonathan said, no, let me have my own way. And let me just try to venture out. Let me explore. And the novel says that Jonathan, after having gone through several falls, several hurts, several bruises, he managed his strength. And finally, he went up and up, and he went to what he calls as a cosmic sky. Cosmic sky is a strata of sky where nobody actually ventures out. From there, when you look at the world looks completely different. In all its colors, in its hues, in its shades, the world looks completely different. And there the story ends. Ends by urging you, by motivating you that, what is the final message that is actually that you get out once you read this novel? Message that you get is you have to venture, you have to explore, you have to find out. My dear young friends, it's all about finding out. When I chose architecture after my pre-university, those days it was pre-university, there are very, very few choices, I used to get very high marks for mathematics. And those days, when you have good marks for science and mathematics, you are sentenced to take one of the engineering disciplines. I had a flair for uh, painting, fine arts, and things like that. And that actually led me to architecture. When I took up architecture, I really didn't know the crux, the spirit of architecture. My dear friends, after 40 years of intense life as an architect, let me tell you that I've enjoyed every moment being an architect. I've enjoyed every moment of the journey. And that is exactly what I wanted to share with you. I didn't know what architecture was all about, but I had a vision. When I was very young, when I was a schoolboy, I had a great opportunity to work in some of the most popular science movements, popular science movements. And that led me to amazing vistas in the sense that led me to amazing experiences, I was involved in a process called Total Literacy Mission. As a schoolboy, I used to go to the fishermen chalets, traditional fishermen chalets, where for the first time in my life, I could see poverty at such close distance. I used to go there, literally sleep with them because I used to teach them, the old, fisherwoman, how to read and write, Those were the days when Total Literacy Mission was on. I used to go there, hold their hands, and, sort of teach them how to read and write. But those days gave me very critical inputs about what life is all about. I was seeing poverty at such a close distance. I never knew that there was a section of people who existed, who didn't have tomorrows, and who were struggling to have a square meal a day. And that led me into a very narrow corridor of perception. And I thought, whatever I am going to learn later, I thought I should use it for the betterment of humanity, to eradicate poverty from this world and things like that. I want to hold hands with the marginalized people, for the dispersed, and the you know denied sections of people. And when I took architecture, I was not really confused. I knew that I had a wish to do something. Why I took architecture is because of 1, 2, 3, 4 reasons. Let me tell you that. One was that, as a very young architect, I thought I was in a hugely privileged space where whatever I am going to dream and draw was going to be turned into three-dimensional forms. I thought that was a unique opportunity, You think about something and that thought is going to be translated into three-dimensional form, That I thought was a huge opportunity. Let me tell you that with pride and such pleasure after 40 years, that who else in the world, I'm telling you, who else in the world have got the privilege of translating your dreams into three-dimensional realities? Only architects, my dear friends. Only architects. That is exactly why I feel that architects is a privileged vocation. I mean, you are blessed to choose architecture because there's a huge blessing. I'm telling you, huge blessing. I firmly believe that only chosen ones, let me use these words very carefully, only the chosen ones become architects. So you are, probably some of you are the chosen ones. I'm telling you, I don't say lies. I don't want to impress you people. I don't want to, lead you into false promises. I'm telling you, when I tell you something, it's out of my conviction and truthfulness and honesty. It's out of my values. You are the chosen ones. When you take architecture as a vocation, when you choose architecture as a discipline of study, you should realize that you are actually getting wedded to a huge profession which offers you infinite possibilities, infinite promises. It's wonderful. You are actually trying to embark on a wonderful, wonderful journey. I know as a young student of architecture, you may not be really aware of the possibilities, opportunities. What are the threats, that challenges that you're going to face in the future? My dear friends, for every one of you who want to make it big, who want to be successful in their work, the way is always longer. I'm telling you, you have to take a longer way. When you're student, when your colleagues, when your friends are actually sleeping, you may have to work hard, but hard work will always pay, my dear friends. Hard work will always pay. Architecture is, yeah, partially it's hard work. You have to work very hard probably during the academic days. But once you come out of the college and once you are a graduate, my dear friends, there is no limit to the scope, no limit to the expansive world where you're going to get it. Having said that, I'll very briefly touch upon certain opportunities that you have. Let me talk about the social opportunities first, before I go into economic opportunities. I'm sure most of you will have this, especially the parents. If the parents are there in the crowd, I'm sure they will be asking me this question. But after my son, my graduates, what is going to be the scope? How much salary that my son is going to get? What is the scope? Will he ever get a job? Will he get a secure job and things like that? I just want to reach out to those people who have this question in their mind. I'm telling you, the social opportunity is infinite. Opportunity is infinite. You can hold hands with many, many people, many, many sections of people. When you hold hands with people, it becomes a wonderful thing. It becomes a divine thing. You're sharing somebody's dreams. You're trying to imbibe on somebody's dreams, and you're going to build on that. People who are coming to you as an architect will be probably an innocent person who will have dreams. He will have some money. You have to translate it into a concrete reality, into a house, into a commercial building, into an institutional building. They will only have dreams. They will also have the money. You are the one. You are the tailor. You are going to get their, understand their requirements, and then you are going to translate it into a concrete reality. Huge opportunities. And I'll just talk about India, for instance. India, we have more than 50 million families without homes in India today. Just talk about houselessness in India. 50 million families doesn't have a shelter over this thing. Just look at it. 50 million houses to be built. And how many architects are there? Probably a few thousands. I'm telling you, the numbers are quite limited, unlike other engineering professions. And we're talking about 50 million houses to be built. On top of that, India is in an exciting phase of development in terms of infrastructure, which means buildings are going to come. Whether you like it or not, whether you like the footprints or not, buildings are going to come in large numbers. When buildings are going to come in large numbers, who is going to design it? It's you who is going to design. And architecture has actually developed into very many interesting vistas, my dear friends. It's not only building a building. It's not about building, designing a institution, building a college or a religious building. It's much beyond work. We are going to be responsible for the built-up environment. When you say built-up environment, we are talking about a better world. Architects, they create the world, my dear friend. They create the world because you are responsible for the built-up environment. Built-up environment is a critical factor in designing the world, in developing the world. So you are going to be a part of it. Don't you feel privileged? Don't you feel happy about it? That you are going to be a very critical role, very important role in molding the destiny of the mankind. Huge opportunity, my dear friends. Huge opportunity because challenges are very many. Since we are morally responsible for the built-up environment, we are architects, the people who are in the fraternity. We are morally responsible for the built-up environment. When I say morally responsible built-up environment, that comes with challenges. That comes with lots of challenges that the world is facing now. And how do you design buildings, including, talking about inclusive development. What do you mean by inclusive development? You have to realize that a lot of people in this world are not fairly able. They are not able-bodied persons. Some of them have difficulties in walking. Some of them can't see things. Some of them can't hear things. Some of them can't walk well. We have to include them into our vocabulary. 15% of India's population is having 15%. That's a staggering person having some kind of difficulties. How do you include them in your design strategy? Very interesting, isn't it? Very interesting. World over, Europe over, United States over, all the buildings are inclusive in the sense if a blind person comes to study in a blind person coming to university and study, it might sound surprising to an Indian crowd. There are facilities in the West. There are facilities in probably Far East, where you are talking about inclusive environment. There are many more challenges because, as people who are responsible for the built-up environment, we are responsible for the climate change, sustainability. And I don't want to go into the details of green architecture and sustainable architecture, but you are going to embark on a journey where we are going to increasingly talk about sustainability, increasingly talking about people-centric architecture. It's very exciting. People-centric architecture. My dear friends, when you look around the metros in Kerala, for instance, Trivandrum, or if you talk about Kochi, or you talk about Kozhikode, you see the urban landscape is more or less saturated. Now, where are you going to get opportunities to build, to design? Where are you going to get opportunities? My dear friends, Kerala is a long string of big and small towns. We don't have villages per se. The space that you are going to occupy, people after me, we are all part of vanishing tribe. The people who are coming after us, it's going to work an exciting paradigm called transition space. It's a space between a city and a rural area. That is where you're going to work. That is where a lot of innovations can come. A lot of creativity can be invested. Now, we are all going through stressful times, my dear friends. You and me, you as an young student, me as a senior professional, we are both going through very severe, stressful times because we can't see actually face to face, we can't meet, we can't talk. We are using some other medium to talk to each other. It's not really friendly, it's not really personal. Both of us are going through stressful times. How do you actually get out of the stressful times? It's something only architects can do. Let me also make it very, only architects can very effectively cross this bridge, talking about innovation and creativity. This is an exciting profession where and innovation and creativity can actually dilute your tensions and this thing. That's the only way out. By having creative solutions and innovative solutions, you can actually cross this bridge. Now, I was beginning to touch on social opportunities that an architect will have. India is a land of myriad opportunities, myriad landscapes, number of mindscapes. Where else in the world can we have such a plethora of social opportunities? Because we have poor people, we have displaced people, we have rich people, we have a lot of money. We are building up institutions, we are building up commercial complexes, we are building up multiplexes, hugely religious, so a lot of religious buildings are coming up. Where else in the world will you get such a variety of buildings to design? India, my dear friends. If you go to UK, from where I took my master's degree from, go to Europe, go to UK. As an architect, your domain is very, very limited. I'm telling you, very, very limited because in all the cities, you'll be given a city plan, you're strictly adhered to the master plan. You may not even be able to design an elevation. I'm telling you, you may not be even design a proper building because the elevation will be given. The plan will be given. You can work in interiors. You can't work anything outside. In England, you are given everything. You are given the elevation by the government. You are given the basic plan. You can work within that. Probably you can demolish a wall, make the living room bigger, take the bedroom out. But that is the only creative freedom that you'll get. In India, where else? This is this thing to you, an open poster to you. Where else in the world will you get such an opportunity to design a variety of buildings? Socially, we have problems. You have all sections of society. And where else will you get an opportunity to hold on to the people's aspirations? India is a third world country. India is daring to dream. Where else can you translate these dreams in reality? Architects have a huge role. People who are coming after me, the young architects, I'm telling you, you have a huge role to play. Social opportunities is of a degree that nobody else can challenge. As an architect, you can justify your own life. Your life is a professional by looking at immense social opportunity. Now, what are the economic opportunities? Let me tell you, we have a growth pattern. Architects normally have a growth pattern. Initially, it's growing to be arithmetic progression. You have heard of arithmetic progression and geometric progression. Arithmetic progression means something which will move slowly, and then after some time, it will turn itself in geometric progression. Architects will have to start slow. They'll have to learn. They'll have to probably intern under a eminent architect, eminent school of architecture. That is where we start from. But 5 years hence, I'm telling you, from the day of graduation, 5 years hence, there won't be any limitation. I'm telling you, you can design your life. You can design the kind of opportunities that you want to have. If you want to make 100,000 rupees a month, very easy, my dear friends. I'm telling you. If you really want to make that kind of money within 4 years, 5 years after graduation, when you're only 26, 27, 28, you can still make it. Economic opportunities, many. I don't want to go into the details, but just imagine. You're just doing 2 buildings a year. You're just going to design 2 residential buildings a year. Let the residential buildings be of 30, 40 lakhs each. 30 lakhs, 40 lakhs is a kind of normal building now for a residence. A 3-bedroom house with probably 2,000 square feet, 3,000, 2,200 square feet is going to cost you 40 lakhs. 2 buildings a year is 80 lakhs. 80 lakhs into 5%. If you take 5% as the professional fee, nothing less than that. Let us take 5% per for a building. You are talking about an easy 4 lakhs. Easy 4 lakhs. If you just do 2 buildings, how much time will you take? Probably 1 hour a day. 1 hour a day. Which other profession offers you so much of economic opportunity? If you want to do that, you can do that. Architecture is now diversifying. There were so many faculties. Initially, when I was a student of architecture, I was just talking about architecture. Now we are talking about urban design, you're talking landscape architecture, you're talking about climate resilient architecture, you're talking disaster management, you're talking about sustainable environmental management. There are ever so many opportunities for architecture. Graphics, animation, people are going to wonderful this thing where there's got an innate relationship with architecture. Academics, rest of it. So, I mean, the economic opportunities are many. But I'm not trying to anchor you to social opportunities, economic opportunities. I am going to take you to a journey, which is the journey enjoying architecture. What is this festivity all about? I used a word very consciously. Let me reiterate that word. Architecture is going to be a huge festival for you. You are going to take up architecture, and life is going to be a huge festival for you. When I say festival, it always talks about happiness. You are going to enter into a kingdom of happiness. We are all living for happiness, my dear friend. We are looking at peace. We are looking at happiness. You are at the doorstep of a kingdom of happiness because you are going to hold hands. You are going to create in your, thoughts into counter reality. That's what I call as a kingdom of happiness. How does it happen? What is the basic definition of architecture? People say that it's conditioning of spaces for human comfort. And the first definition, when I started, taking architecture as a faculty, as a study area, this is the first thing that was taught to me. What definition of architecture? Definition of architecture: conditioning of space. Space, as you know, like God, is omnipresent, is omnipotent, is there everywhere, there everywhere. How do you limit your space for your comfort? Very interesting. This is a challenge before the architect. And you are going, when you are taking this profession, you are going to get into that little space of conditioning of space for your comfort. Your comfort means your light, ventilation, meeting your metaphysical needs and things like that. It's going to be a huge journey. So this is where the basic definition of architecture starts. It starts talking about happiness and peace. So there's a client who is going to come to you for designing buildings. He will have a dream. He will talk to you about spaces that you need. He will talk to you about 2 bedrooms, a living room, dining room, etc., etc. But what is the value addition that you are going to bring? You are looking at the ways you could bring in the light, the ways you could have happy spaces for living, cozy, intimate spaces for living. You're not looking at best spaces. You're looking at spaces for meditation, places for reading, places for listening to music, places to look out, places to hold hands, places where you can read, where you can be alone, not doing anything. They're talking about metaphysical spaces. This is an interesting journey. That's what makes architects very different. People will come to you telling you that they need 2 bedrooms, they have so much of money. As an architect, you can lead them. So what does it mean? Architects have a huge role of educating people. Very important. Architects have a huge role of educating people. When a client comes to you, you can tell them that, look, I will design it. Most important things are bringing light, happiness into the building. How do you do that? Only architects will have the third eye to tell them how to do it using your own creativity and innovation. That is where we bring in courtyard, we bring in huge French windows, bay windows, having a very sensuous form of architecture, talk about curves, talk about volumes. That is where architecture becomes a celebration. I told you a word Initially, when I talked about this thing, I told about a festival that's going to be there throughout the life. Now I am using another word consciously. It's going to be not only festival, it's going to be celebration. When you say celebration, as an architect, when you create something, this happiness that you derive out of it is immense, my dear friend. When I say it is, I say it with such conviction. Much earlier in my life, I had the huge opportunity to work with very young children. Government of India, when I was very young, in my late 20s, I was taken in by the government of India and I was put in a committee to design child-friendly schoolrooms, child-friendly schools. When I was very young, into my late 20s, I was inducted by the government of India into a central committee to design schools for the young children. I had to go to all the 24 states in the country, looking at schools. To my discovery, let me tell you that the first thing that I learned as an architect, I was a qualified architect. I had a master's qualification from England, and I was going to the schools with the mantle of an architect, proud, pretentious. I was going there with the mantle of an architect. The first thing that the young children taught me, uncle, you have to sit down on the floor. They asked me, the young children of India asked me to sit down on the floor, sit down on the floor. And when I sat down on the floor, the world was looking different to me. That's the first thing the young children told me. Uncle, you have to sit on the floor to look at the height at which we see the world. As an adult, as a pretentious architect, I was looking at adult dimensions. These young children, forced me to sit down. When I sat down and looked at things, everything was looking different, It was like Gulliver's world, You have heard of Gulliver's Travels, Lilliput. So, I mean, the world looked different. The windows height was not accessible. I couldn't see the world out. I couldn't access the blackboard. I couldn't access anything. It was all teacher friendly. Then I thought, oh my God, as an architect, I should do something for the children. Then we went on creating a lot of things. We broke the sizes, We talked about a facilitation room, It was not teacher controlling the student. A teacher as an enabler, not as a controller, as an enabler, as a facilitator. Shapes change. I'm talking to you, my dear friends. I'm talking to you. Probably I'm not able to see the faces. I can see Ajish, I can see Ahana, I can see Bidi, but I can see the rest of them. When I look at their eyes, actually we are forming a circle. We're unknowingly forming a circle. You in your homes and me standing here, sitting here, we are unknowingly forming a circle. When we are unknown, when a communication happens, we have to actually sit in a circle. Only then we have to look at the eyes. Only then the communication happens. So instead of square rooms, where classroom is all about communication, teacher communicating students, students communicating back to teacher. Shape of the school rooms change from monotonous rectangles, monotonous squares, into wonderful circles, into wonderful octagons, wonderful hexagons. Suddenly the shapes change. Look at this. This is a metamorphosis that the children have taught me. Then we went on creating a lot of things. Instead of the squarish, monotonous blackboards, we changed the color into green. Green was a more attractive color. And we changed even the shape of the blackboard into wonderful, culturally appropriate shapes. Mangoes, apples in Kashmir, mangoes in Tamil Nadu, elephants in Kerala. We changed the whole shape, the shape of the blackboard into green elephants and things like that. We created for rural poor. There are many people in the country who are still sitting. We are talking about benches and desks and chairs, but 50% of the people in India are still sitting on the floor, and the teacher even sitting on the floor and teaching and learning. How does that happen? We created small writing boards on the floor. We created small little storage spaces for the children on this thing, at that level where children could access. We brought down the board to such a level that children could go to the board and write something. This was a paradigm change. And We created 24 schools in Andhra Pradesh as a pilot project. Day of inauguration came. Prime Minister came and went. I designed a particular school with a mezzanine. I was just experimenting. British government gave me the money and we were looking at several design paradigms. I created a small mezzanine space. In Malayalam, it can be called as a Tattinpuram and things like that. The school having a small Tattinpuram kind of a thing, a mezzanine space where adults can't stand, only children could stand with a rickety staircase inside the classroom. My dear friends out there, my young friends, the day of inauguration came, the Prime Minister came and inaugurated the whole thing, and then the doors were open to the public. Children ran in numbers, in crowds. And the best building, out of the 24 buildings of my building, where I created this little mezzanine space, children were climbing up like rats. And, showing, when I went to this thing, they were showing pranks to me. I couldn't access that because, I was an adult and height was only 4 feet. That mezzanine space was designed for young children. They took it without having to guide them. They took the space. They ransacked the space. That is how you accept a space. I'm telling you, my dear friends, such experiences actually enrich you. You learn from the people. You learn from experience. You don't learn only from the textbooks and your teachers. You learn from the world. You learn from young children. And you keep on updating your knowledge base. Updating your knowledge base. They teach you, your clients. End of the day, there's a client who is waiting for your solution. And, I've always held doctors in high esteem. I've always held, some of the people who actually mark our way, who help us, teachers, for instance, we hold them in high esteem. There are many other opportunities an architect can get. When I went up the stair, first time in South India, when I was receiving the Padma Shri, when I was climbing up the stairs of Rashtrapati Bhavan, this was the exact feeling that I had. Me coming from a remote village in central Travancore, finally getting an opportunity and climbing up the stairs of Rashtrapati Bhavan to receive one of the highest civilian award. I was talking about this journey, my dear friends. Journey, my dear friends. Just before the award was announced, I was in Sri Lanka. I was looking at a huge project, which I don't think any Kerala architects would have dreamt about such a magnitude of projects. I'm talking about, I was building 95,000 houses for government of Sri Lanka for, people who lost their lives in the civil war and later, lives in the tsunami. So I was involved in two major projects, talking 95,000 houses. And as an architect, people-centered architect, I want to meet them. I'm very familiar with Sri Lanka, my dear friends, very familiar with Sri Lanka because I go to every corner of Sri Lanka, talk about right from, northwestern and northeastern provinces, which you may not be very familiar in geographic textbooks. Places like Jaffna, Betikola, Tangomali, Pedro Point, Mullaitiv, and the rest of it. That's the area where I was working, primarily for the war victims. And one day I was asked to go to a place called Poonthottam. Poonthottam in every language, in Tamil, in Malayalam. I was actually addressing Tamil population. Poonthottam in any language means a veritable garden. When I was seeing oceans of despair everywhere. I was seeing oceans of misery everywhere. And suddenly, as a person with diplomatic immunity, an architect, Government of India nominee, I was asked to go to this thing, and I thought, for the first time, I was going to see happy communities. That's my dream. Till then, I was seeing only unhappy faces. People lost their wives, their children. Everywhere, I was seeing oceans of despair. Suddenly, they said, government of Sri Lanka officials said, tomorrow you're going to a place called Poonthottam. Poonthottam in every language means veritable garden, flowers, happy faces. When I went to Poonthottam in the morning, I was taken in for a ride. Very huge slum-like situation where 15,000 families were holed up. 15,000 people were holed up. Talking about 4,000 and odd families. I went into the community. When I go to the community, especially talk about people-centered strategies, I sit with them. I hold their hands. I put my arms around them. And that is why I communicate. They communicate their needs to me. I went there. You must have heard the story of a pipe piper who uses pipe to lure rats out of the town. You have heard of that. You have seen some pictures. A pied piper, going using that musical instrument, taking the rats away from the city. I was a pied piper there, and when I went there, people thought that yes, I'm the representative of God who is going to give you a lot of benefits. I was there to give them houses. They couldn't distinguish between the government of India and myself. There was me who was there to deliver goods to them. They came in numbers. It was raining. It was very slushy outside. Still, they sat on the floor. As a people's architect, I also sat on the floor. I started talking to them in their language. I had a translator with me and asked them about their lifestyle, this thing. Whenever I design buildings, I actually have them in my portfolio, talk about the physical, metaphysical, lifestyle issues and things like that. I was talking to them, and suddenly the military came. They asked me to get out. You know, they asked me to rise and get. I said, no, I can't do that because I am government of India nominee, having the diplomatic immunity. You can't shoo me away. They said, no, it's a government to government dialogue. You cannot talk to the wretched people. It's a wretched. It's not a word acceptable to me. It's unparliamentary to me. I'm here on a government mandate to help people to build their houses. And I can't shoo away from the responsibility. But the people said, Brigadier came, arms and all. They said, no, sir, it's a government order. You have to leave. It's a law and order situation. You have to leave. When I got a very young girl, 3, 4 Tamil girl with plaited leaves and things like that. I've seen it only in my childhood days. Colorful pavada and all. She came to me and tucked at a long shirt that I was wearing. She tucked at my shirt and she was asking me. She gave me a bit of jasmine garland, which obviously she plucked it from some place. It was Pongal Day for Tamils. Pongal Day is a special. It's the start of a new year. So she said, Mama, in Tamil she said, Mama, Mamante Padike, Enda Padike. Give this garland to her as a present. She didn't realize that, I'm an Indian and I'm in Sri Lanka to look after their housing needs. She didn't realize, young girl, 4 years old young girl, she had this courage to come up to me in spite of the, situation there. People were running helter and skelter. This girl had the courage to come to me, tucked at my shirt, and she gave me this thing and she told me that, Mama, either mom and mommy can. I took her this thing. Normally, I carry chocolates with me every day because I'm a diabetic. I'm a chronic diabetic, and if my sugar level goes down, I have to take chocolates. That particular day, I didn't have chocolates in my pocket. So I was just wondering what she gave me a precious present. I asked her, Mole, my daughter, what is it that you have to tell me? She said, Mama, in Tamil, she said, I'll say the Malayalam version before I go to English. There, Mama, in the வீட்டுக்கு பொம்மைகள் இருக்கு. There's some dolls kept in my house, which she believes is a house. It's just rundown shack. She believes that she was probably born and brought up there. She believes that that was the house that she got. Mama, in the வீட்டுக்கு பொம்மைகள் இருக்கு. What is happening? My friends are coming and taking it away. I want you to give me a secure and safe. She knew that an architect designs spaces and things like that. She had a very preliminary idea of an architect. She came to me and asked me whether I could give her a safe and secure place to keep her dolls. Mama, and the can you give me a space to keep my dolls? That is a little request that the girl had to tell me. But before I could answer that, the girl was dragged away by the police, by the military people. They didn't allow this girl to respond to me. I mean, they just dragged her away. I couldn't look back. My granddaughter's age, little girl who had the courage to come back to me and share her dream. There are millions of them like that little girl in this world. And that is where you're going to work, my dear friends. Immense of potential, immense experiences that are awaiting you as an architect. And you're also going to, touch on very severe challenges the world is facing, talking about disaster, the environment, the climate change, and things like that. And in Kerala, let me tell you that you should feel extremely privileged to live in a place like Kerala, probably to take up your course in DC school for many reasons. I'll tell you. Kerala, I've gone across the world. I don't think anybody else in Kerala have traveled as much as I have. I've gone across the world several times, looking at several landscapes and mindscapes. It's extremely, and I feel extremely privileged to have born into a place like Kerala, live in a place like Kerala, and I don't want to go away. I'm saying with such conviction, Kerala is a land of immense opportunities, growth and legacy. I would call it growth and legacy. Why? Because three reasons. One, the legacy of architecture, the profundity, the depth of local vernacular architecture is immense. It's overwhelming. Nowhere in the world you will see architecture based on pure mathematics. I'm telling you, pure mathematical perceptions turning into building. Nowhere in the world, my dear friend. Nowhere in the world where we have such a legacy of architecture. Now, the environmental, the kind of eco-sensitivity that we had, immense sensitivity that we have. When you used to cut down trees for building, we used to ask for pardon. We used to take vriksha pujas to ask for pardon from the goddess, telling her that you need to pardon us for cutting down the tree. This was the eco-sensitivity that we had. Kerala has a huge legacy of eco-sensitivity and people-centered architecture. Where else in the world will you get such an opportunity? And also, when you talk about Kerala, is also architects works with tools. Architects always work with tools. What are the tools? The materials and the technology. That are the tools with which we build house. Where else in the world we have such a vocabulary of beautiful, beautiful building materials with such amazing engineering properties? Nowhere in the world, my dear friends. Kerala has a repository of such amazing building materials and technologies. I'm telling you with such conviction, passion, and compassion that our masons are also very good. The local capabilities that we have in Kerala, we are the best of carpenters in the world. I'm making a very loud statement. Don't take it as a brutal statement. I'm telling you with such conviction, with such knowledge, with such precision. I'm telling you that Kerala has a legacy of beautiful human resources in terms of masonry, in terms of carpentry, in terms of services. We are the best workforce. So, for an architect, either like we have the vocabulary, we have the materials, and we are very receptive people. I'm telling you, Kerala is a land where people will experiment. Kerala is a land which gave space to Laurie Baker. Laurie Baker was an Englishman who came to Kerala, settled down Kerala, trying to look at legacy of Kerala. They started to build. Where else in the world Laurie could have got such attention? Laurie could have got such space because of Kerala's legacy in assimilating cultures, and we gave a huge space to Laurie Baker because we believed him. People are willing to experiment. That's why people have got chances to me as an architect. I was one of these pedestrian people going around, not really doing many things. But I was given a space by Kerala people because people were willing to experiment. If I give them a round house, they will not ask many questions. They will try to be, sir, if the building looks nice, if it's functional, yes, I will take it. No more questions. It's great. I mean, when they come out with, they tell you, very clearly tell you with the requirements that they have, with the metaphysical requirements that they have, that they want a little space. I had huge opportunity building with, many sections of people, For instance, I have built many buildings for the people with challenges, challenged people, people who couldn't see, couldn't hear, who couldn't talk, mentally challenged people. I've built up several facilities for them. And one of them I still remember when she used to come to me as a family, she used to complain. The boy, a grown-up boy, he wouldn't stand. He was a hyperactive boy. And he would break up everything. Come to my office, break up the table. He will throw the sheets around. He was a hyperactive boy. But somehow, his father was able to come, sort of put him down. And the mother used to come and, talk about spaces. This boy actually, we gave him a little space inside the room. Let me tell you, inside the room, where he could just go out and stand in the sun and look at the skies, look at the nature without being stared at. Can you ever imagine? Young boy in his bedroom, he had a courtyard kind of a space where he would look out to the stars, look out to the skies. Somebody need to mute. Sudhir, Will you mute yourself? Okay. You have to go ahead with that. And, finally, when the house was coming up, she actually told me two things. One is when I cast the roof, she said, my dream has a roof now. She said, she just wrote me a WhatsApp message saying that my dream has a roof now. When I cast the roof, and she was telling me the transformation that the child acted from very, very hyperactive child. He started loving the nature. He started nursing plants. He was not scared. He had a private space to himself. It's a glorious opportunity, my dear friends, to look at such spaces, such spaces. A thing that comes to your mind in your thoughts. If that can be treated into a three-dimensional reality, there's nothing like that. This is the opportunity that you get. Innovation and creativity are going to be the thing forward. Architecture is not about creating spaces. It's about creating the world, my dear friends. When you're taking architecture as a profession, when you're taking up this call to become an architect, my dear parents, let me also tell you this. You're taking a very wise decision. You're you're leading your child in the world of contentment and happiness. I'm telling you, having traveled this way for 40 years, I've not regretted one moment, being an architect. I've always enjoyed my life as an architect. And architecture, to me, gives you immense opportunities, immense potential, immense linkages and connectivities. They're always connected, and the opportunity that you get, you leave a trail behind. As a teacher, probably you'll be teaching a lot of students. They'll be becoming architects. But another person can replace you, the teacher. But I'm telling you, as an architect, you leave a trail, not be changed. You leave a trail. Your building is going to stay there. And the building is going to talk to the generations. Responsibly, irresponsibly, that's going to be a statement. That's going to be around you for some time. Who else in the world? Who else in the world has such a trail to leave behind? That is why, as architects, I'm sure you're confused about a lot of things. The amount of specialization that you make. Now, when I was a young boy, I used to go to a general dentist. That dentist would do a lot of things. He will fix up my molar tooth. He will fix up my little, corrections and things like pluck my tooth. He will correct, put the dentures there. There's a general dentist. Now, when I go, I'm an old person. Now, when I go to the dentist, I get confused. There's an orthodontist, there's a periodontist. There's several faculties of dentistry, which I'm not really aware of. Cosmetic dentistry, it's like that, something that goes beyond my comprehension. Now, as an architect, the most famous actress in India is an architect. Aishwarya Roy is an architect. There are several of them. Several filmmakers are architects. Several immensely successful graphic artists are architects. There are several people who have gone into worlds of creativity and worlds of creative freedom. They're all over the world. Musicians, world-renowned musicians are there. People have gone to different pursuits of happiness, pursuits of creativity. This will be a launching pad of you, launching pad for every one of you. Don't say from architecture you can branch out to landscape architecture. Now you're talking about hospital architecture, healthcare architecture. You're talking about architects specially meant for healthcare building. There are several of them in America and all, United States, Canada and all. You have architects specializing only in healthcare building. Urban design, infrastructure design, transportation. Architects is spreading its wings now. Architects is spreading its wings. There are immense opportunities everywhere. We need architects. We need a lot more architects. Opportunities are going to be there. Infrastructure development is going to go at a very fast pace. The pace and intensity of urban development cannot be mitigated. I'm telling you, in pace and intensity of urbanization cannot be mitigated. And as such, opportunities cannot be mitigated for an architect because we are primarily responsible for the infrastructure. So this is what architecture is all about. Immense opportunities, immense connectivities, immense, linkages, and immense opportunities. something that cannot be taught. Really, really, I'm telling you. You can be given some tools, some rooms, but you have to create a room with a view. You'll be dead into your room. You have to put your windows right. You have to create rooms with a view. That's your paradigm. That's your take on this. My dear young friends who are just embarking on a journey, I'm very sure that you have taken a very wise decision to become an architect. And that to an establishment that has already, created a footprint in Kerala in architectural education. I've been to DC Vagaman several times. I've talked to the children there. I find them uh, very creative, innovative at that age, young children, but I find them very different. It's set up in a very beautiful setup in Vagaman. One of the best, to me, is one of the best located arts institutions probably in the country. I'm telling you, beautiful, scenic backgrounds and a beautiful school of architecture. Sirik being there, Sirik being one of the topmost architects probably in the country. He's there to guide you, and I'm sure this institution is going to go places. And very dedicated people like Miti, Aji, Shahana, and people around that. You're going to have, it's very important. You need to have people who hold their hands, Faculty, I'm very convinced about the faculty strength. Faculty strength is very important to sort of mold you into a good architect. They will help you. I'm very sure about their credentials. I've seen them at very close quarters, and I'm very sure about their capabilities. I'm sure about the facilities that the institution is going to create. I'm talking about, I'm sure that the institution, before you graduate, you will have international engagements with several international institutions, and you will become a kind of universal architect with basic knowledge in architecture. All these possibilities are there. You see, disasters always brings an opportunity. This kind of interaction happening in a new space, cyber world, is going to create more and more vistas, creative vistas for you. You are going to address the world. And my dear friends, no other time like this. COVID times actually teach you many, many important lessons in architecture. The lessons that I was trying to uphold for the last 30 years have all come true during this COVID times. I was always talking about certain things, that smaller buildings are more beautiful, small is beautiful kind of a thing, and that is being proven. I've been always talking about sustainable architecture. We are now talking about ventilation all the time. You want to get away from COVID virus, you have to stay in a ventilated room. So all these concerns that I had, trying to talk through architecture have been fulfilled. I feel very satisfied, gratified at this particular point of time, where, my dear friends, creativity and innovation, those things cannot be taught. But through hard work, you can gain a lot of confidence, and through confidence, you can get into beautiful vistas of creativity and innovation. I will just leave this forum open. I'm sure young children will have some questions to ask me. I'll take a few questions if you will allow me, Vijay. If you can
Yes,
allow me,
sure.
Ajish, if you can allow me, I can take a few questions
Sure,
from
sure.
the people
We'll be
who are
very happy. We'll be
still
very
Yeah,
not
happy.
definitely, sir.
decided
Sure.
about their career. I will talk from my heart. I told you that I don't say lies. Whatever is my experience, I'll talk to you through those experiential coefficients. Rest be sure that you'll get truthful answers from me. So be honest. Whatever apprehensions you have about taking this vocation, about perceptions of architecture, where this is going to lead you, and what kind of work that you need to do, I'm a teacher too. I teach in several institutions across the world. So I have an international perceptions about academic activities too. So anything that you can ask me, I'm sure I'll be able to answer to the limits of my knowledge. And thank you, DC, for giving me this August opportunity to initiate this design talk series. And I feel very happy, gratified. And if I have conveyed a few messages to the young children outside who are, planning to join the crowd, I will feel more gratified and satisfied. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you so much for that very interesting and enlightening talk. The first time I heard you was in the early 90s when I was a student myself in College of Engineering, Trivandrum. And I see the same passion, the same zeal, even now after 30 plus years, sir, hats off to you. It's not easy to have that passion going on and growing. I should say it's grown, after so many years, I'm hearing you again. And I feel that the passion has only grown. It has not. Design also. We also have a very beautiful campus here, just like Wagaman, fully set up, fully facilitated, and we are also ready for admission now. That's a different thing altogether. But what I found the most interesting part of your talk, I will be opening the floor to the students shortly, immediately, but I loved how you talked about the social opportunity and economic opportunity together. And it's a major concern for many parents, the economic opportunity. And you are one person who has blended it completely well, like gone together very well. So very thankful for that talk, sir. And let's hope that the students who are here listening in will be able to, so and then be the Pied Pipers in their society, and they will also be able to lead, the society, lead parts of the society. That's what I'm hoping for. The floor is now open for questions. Anyone who wants to ask questions, you may please join in right now. I had one question which was messaged to me separately by Nimisha. She had asked me how was your experience working with architect Baker. This was one of the questions which had come in the chat box. So you are on mute, sir. You're on mute right now.
Yeah, can you repeat that question, please?
How was your experience working with architect Laurie Baker? That was the question.
Yeah, just for information, I've never worked with Laurie Baker. But I've never worked with Laurie Baker, but I always considered him as my mentor, mentor in the sense, guru in a very traditional way. I was actually, when I was in this college, I was growing up with Baker buildings. It was in 1970s that Baker came to Kerala and started building. And he started building up the Center for Development Studies in early 1970s, and many public buildings came during that time, Language Institute building and the rest of it. And I was beginning to grow with them. There's a particular incident in my life, which actually transformed my perceptions on architects. And then I actually, my mother's hometown is Tiruvalla, and that is where I grew up, Tiruvalla. And Tiruvalla, right at the center of the town, there was a strange structure that was coming up when I was in the school. A strange round structure was coming up. And finally, we called it, finally, the crowd of Tiruvalla, including me, we called it a Kudarapalli because it had a shape of a huge conical roof, and, we called it Kudarapalli, and the name stuck. Those days, we would really talk about communal harmony, and I used to go to churches in Muttipai Prathikyochi for little favors. I used to go to churches. I used to come to the temples and, pray for favors. Those were I'm talking about something that was happening 50 years back. We're all very, and I used to go to many temples, many churches. One of them was Niranampalli, which was later redesigned by Charles Correa, and the earlier church was very homely, scale was very friendly. I still remember every Saturday we used to go there and pray and we used to, when this building came up, this was nearer to my house, it was only walking distance, and I used to go there with the other Christians. I used to go for the morning services. Muttipai Prathingan. As a student, as a 7th standard student, 8th standard student, let me tell you that there was a humbling. This was the first building that really humbled me. When I went into the church, suddenly the interiors were overpowering. We're talking about the presence of omnipresent, we talk about omnipresence, we talk about omnipotent kind of a thing, ever pervading. The powerful presence of God was all around, and then you get a feeling that you're nothing before Him. You're such an insignificant human being before God, You have your inflated pretensions and egos, but before Him, you're nothing. You're just a dust. This particular evocative feeling was brought by the building itself. Laurie Baker building, which was this particular building, St. Mary's Cathedral or something, I don't remember the name. When we went in, it used to humble us. How could you create a space, a metaphysical space, which humbles you, which makes you feel that you are so insignificant? And he had, using his hand, he had beautifully depicted the 13 stations, if you remember right, the way to ascension. You're talking about 13 stations. All this was, with Yettaman Computer, 8 roads. He made all these beautiful sculptures all over the world. And it had several Kerala motifs, which we could identify with, the long, motifs like gable and kalvalak in the front and things like that. So it was very beautiful, this thing. Such a marvelous kind of a metaphysical space. That was Laurie Baker for me, in the beginning. I never knew. I used to see a white man going there and doing something. I never knew that I would become an architect later. But this man was all around me through his buildings. Even now, BG, you won't believe, at my age, even now, whenever every day is a challenge for me. Every day you go through crisis, illness crisis. You're being beaten, you're being thrashed several times, you're being questioned. Every time I go into a crisis, I go to a Baker building. Because Baker buildings charge me like anything. It's like putting a new battery in you. The spaces that it creates motivates me, the vocabulary, the intimate spaces that it created, that still dazzles me. I'm using that word. I worked with top-notch architects in the country, in the world. I worked with top-notch architects in the world, but I always found Laurie Baker as somebody who is different. I have great opinion, a different opinion with him in terms of some architectural interventions. I thought he was the only Indian architect. I'm telling you, Indian architect who could make a mark, who never built type designs. He built for Mr. Thomas, he built for Mr. Mohammed, he built for Mr. Raman, and every one of them was different. I find Baker as a manifestation of values, manifestation of personal architecture. I don't think anywhere in the world I've found such personal statements of architecture, not in India. Not in India, because I've seen almost every building designed by people whom I adore, Charles Correa, B.V. Doshi, rest of them. But I find Laurie Baker a completely different, this thing, which was to me. So those buildings have inspired me that way. He still remains to me as one of the single most influential. I've never gone to him, but he was very fond of me. One letter, Laurie Baker, written on a back of a wedding invitation. It actually gave me a huge scholarship and admission to Birmingham School of Architecture. That's where I took my master's from. One little reference letter that he wrote, back of a book, he scribbled something. He said he knows about no other young man like Shankarji, who actually is a promise and who could take this, could change the world, in terms of third world housing perspective. He wrote that. And that particular letter gave me the admission to one of the most coveted universities in the world. One little letter. So that way I have great adoration for him, but I returned that. I returned that compliment by getting me an honorary doctorate from the same School of Architecture much later. When I was a student, as a representative of a student, I was there in the Senate of the university, and through my influence, I somehow persuaded the Vice Chancellor to look at Laurie Baker's work, and finally he was awarded a doctorate, honorary doctorate from the university. My Guru Dakshina to you.
On similar lines as you spoke, one of the candidates who have taken admission in our college now, DC School of Architecture and Design, when we asked him why architecture, why do you choose architecture as a profession, Noha had replied, he's a Loyolite actually. So he said the Loyola Chapel is what inspired me.
I'm telling you.
Very similar to your experience. And Noha has a question.
I'm telling you, young students looking at the metaphysical quality of Loyola Chapel, your life is made.
Yes. Noah has a question too to you. What other than architecture excites you? Is a question. What other than architecture excites you?
I'm an impulsive traveler. I'm a reader. I see a lot of movies. You'll be surprised to know that I've gone to several countries in the world, and traveling makes me, it does. I now I have few more destinations to make before I go. COVID times have destroyed my travel plans, but I will go there one day. I want to go to the Mongolian mountains. It's one of the dreams that I have, Mongolian mountains. A few places like the Amazon cruise. There are dreams which I will fulfill later. I've been reading quite a lot. Right from my school days, I've been reading films. I see around 200 movies in here. In spite of my busy schedules, in spite of everything, I find time to read. I find time to do a lot of things.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. From the crowd here, from the panelists and others, anyone, any questions, please put forward or put it to the panelists. We can also ask.
Yeah, am I audible, sir?
Of course, you're audible. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Shankar sir, thank you for such a delighted speech. Actually, it takes me back to my BR days in College of Engineering, Trivandrum, because you are one of the person who actually made me believe that architecture is about touch lives. It's not just to make buildings. And as a professional and as a teacher, I actually do keep on saying to my students that it is about touch lives and it is about make people experience about their dreams and about their aspirations. So thank you for taking me back to those days again. And I have a very context specific questions to you this time, because along with +2 architecture aspirants, we have a large group of first year students from other colleges in this meet. From Airnat Knowledge City College of Architecture and from DG College of Architecture and MES College Kuttipuram. There are first year students in this meet, who incidentally is a very exclusive batch. That is a batch which is almost dealt their first year completely online in this pandemic situation. They know the nuances of the course. They know they have been hearing all this, expressions of architecture and the wonders of the course that they are going to experience in the coming years. Everything from our mouth, but they are still equally worried that they are not getting any of these things in the first year. Apart from this virtual interaction, virtual discussion, etc., etc. So they had this worry always. As I was actually teaching them for a while, to a group of them. So they have still this worry, how are they going to cope up, and is this pandemic situation in the very first year of architecture professionals, will they going to affect them, etc., etc. Too much of, stress in a way, which we are actually trying to solve it from our side. But as a very experienced senior professional, as a person who has dealt with many systems of learning architecture throughout the world, including offline and online system, etc., etc., can you address this stress or worry of first year students at this?
Thank you very much for that, beautiful question.
Yeah.
Ajesh, I've been working disaster mitigation sector for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
Disaster mitigation architecture, looking at the world disaster area. Every disaster actually brings in opportunities. Too many opportunities. These COVID times, initially I was also stressed. Initially I was stressed, and I was thinking about the uncertainties that these pandemic times have brought. But over the last few months, I've realized that there's so much of potential to this, silent time. It's for the students, let me tell you that, and to the teachers. Let me tell you this. You should actually find some time to get the professionals on the platform. I'll tell you why. Now, senior professionals, that includes me also, we have a lot of time to spare for the young children. Today morning, somebody from Coimbatore was on a line because she was actually going to face the jury, in the afternoon. And she wanted a kind of an interaction with me before she could face that. She showed me the design, sheets that they prepared. Afternoon was the jury. Today afternoon, it must have gone. In the morning, she called me from Coimbatore and asked me how. And she opened the scheme to me. Then I was looking at the whole thing, As a practicing architect, your perceptions about architects is completely different. I go as a jury member to a lot of, these kind of examinations. And, there's a way of dealing with design questions. There's a way of dealing with it. Unfortunately, some of the colleges where architects are weak, they're not given the right track to develop their district. For instance, there's a initial requirement called looking at the site. How do you analyze a site before you do anything? before you decipher a project, what are the critical indicators that you should look at when you are taken to a site? You're actually taken to a site. And what are the things that you should take note of? You take note of the vista, you take note of the sun path, you take note of the contours, you take note of the, the geographical features, trees. If there's a small water body, you take note of that. You take note of the profile, topographic profile. A lot of things that you should take note of. This kind of a site analysis was not happening. She had some wonderful case studies to add to this thing. That was not happening. So I think pandemic times is one time which is really good for, kind of a meditative, kind of a contemplative, kind of a learning. It's very important, This is a time which you can actually, source the materials from many sources, internet sources are there, books are there, lots of sources are there. This is a time to browse. I always tell young students of architects, especially first year, second year students, to access knowledge, This is a time. When I was very young, I still remember, first year in engineering college, I used to spend a lot of time in the library, looking at the works of other people. Oscar Niemeyer, for instance, how Brasilia was built, and then I looked at Adolf Loos. People, the names which are not really talked about much. Who said ornamentation is a crime? What was the difference of, architecture of Adolf Loos? Then I went to Antonio Gaudi, the other end of it, the ultimate ornamentation, Antonio Gaudi. All these things that I had the opportunity to browse through books during my students have helped me to focus on my priorities. So, my dear students, apart from the academic rigors, you should look at the opportunities by way of looking at other sources, for contemplating this thing. And we should, as faculty members, you should open up several channels for communication. Have a 1 hour session with a practicing architect. Each student, let that student have a half an hour session with one architect, one established architect, showing their work. That architect. Apart from the faculty members, I know you are being bombarded with such a lot of works. You have to hold hands with 40 people in a particular period. It's not possible. So for more personal interaction, you could actually harness the energies of some of the senior professionals who will be always there to help you. This is one thing. The young students, new vistas are actually, you have to read quite a lot, how, post-COVID times are going to come. Stressful times are going to go. I'm telling you, these stressful times are going to go very soon. It might last for probably a few more months, but you're going to come out of it. You're going to go to the college and learn, probably using new equipments and things like that. You are going to learn. But using this platform, there are several opportunities. I was not a computer savvy person. I'm telling you, I was not a computer savvy person till the COVID times. I started getting the potential of this particular machine after I got into COVID time. Now I can talk to you with ease, earlier days, I didn't have this basic knowledge of, addressing people using these platforms, Webex, Zoom, Cisco, etc. I didn't have the basic knowledge. Now I'm very thorough with every day in, day out, I'm talking to people. So young students, don't get frustrated. It's a huge opportunity. Look out. Look at the whole thing. Look at the, it's a long journey. After it's 4 years, 5 years, you're going to look at a long journey. First year, you're just beginning to, you just, try to develop your skills, drafting skills. No other time like developing drafting skills. Look at your, not computer skills, but your freehand skills to sketch and things like that. All these things will improve. Look at buildings, your own building. Try to criticize it, where it has gone wrong. Look at your own residences. Look at the trees around. Look at the foliage. Look at the leaves. Look at the sky. Look at the soil. Read newspapers. Look at environment damages that buildings are creating. Go to the website. Do all that thing. And, keep the innovation spirit up. That's the only answer that I have. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Any more questions from the panelists and others?
Anybody from the students, especially this first year group that he was addressing?
Ajish, I can come back to you again. I think I will wind up now because it's already 5:30.
Right.
Next time I'll come. I'll be
Yeah,
only happy
definitely,
to hold
definitely.
hands with you. Thank you very much for the
Yeah,
opportunity.
yeah.
Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much
thank you,
for
sir.
the
Yeah.
opportunity, sir. And I would like to call Ahana right now. Ahana, for the vote of thanks for this design diaries at DZ. Ahana?
Respected DC architects, Shankar, Principal Architect Matthew, my colleagues and young friends. Good evening, everyone. I am Hannah, and I am here to present the vote of thanks for today's webinar. Thank you very much, Padma Shri, Dr. Shankar, for the enlightenment on why action. We want special vote of thanks for joining us in the. We are grateful for the time and effort you took to share your thoughts. It's very interesting to hear about your experiences in the field of architecture. You have shown so many areas. It is very interesting to hear from you design space.
I am sorry about that. Looks like there is a technical glitch. I'm sorry about that, Architect
Yeah, there is
Shankar.
some network error, actually. Yeah, yeah.
There's some technical glitch going on here, I think. Thank you
It's
very
okay. We
much,
will
sir.
leave now. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you very much.
Thank you,
And
Miti.
we will be
Thank you,
calling you
Ashish.
back.
Thank you, Hannah, rest of them. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you very
this thing.
much, sir.
Thank
Have a
you,
good
my dear
evening.
students.
Have a good evening.
Wish you more meaningful journeys ahead. Thank you very much.
And once the pandemic is over, we'll welcome you to college too, sir, to address the students sometime. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye.